Glad you have. So now let's talk about the front and back rising Rashis. The Rashis, they rise over the horizon with their front or their back. The night strong Rashis, they rise with their back, except for Gemini, which rises with the front. And the day strong Rashis, they rise with their front, except for Pisces, right? Pisces is both front and back rising, right? Because it's a two fish, that swim in the opposite directions. So Pisces rises both ways. So now let's talk about the Rashis one by one. So Aries is the first sign of Mars and is night strong, and therefore it is also back rising. Taurus is the first sign of Venus, night strong and back rising. Gemini is the first sign of Mercury, but it is the exception, and it is front rising. Cancer is the first sign of the two luminaries, and it is back rising. Leo is the second sign of the luminaries. It is day strong, and it is front rising. Virgo is front rising, and so are Libra and Scorpio. Sagittarius and Capricorn are the first signs of Jupiter and Saturn, and they are night strong, and they are back rising. Aquarius is again day strong and front rising, and Pisces is both back and front rising. So what's the difference between moving forwards and moving backwards, right? So the difference is efficiency, right? It's more efficient to move forward. It's less efficient to move backwards. Let's say you give something to someone and tell them, look, carry this to my car. My car is about half a mile down the road. And then the person's going to come back, let's say after like 30 minutes, and they tell you, look, I carried it to the car. Now you can tell them, look, carry the same thing to the car, but I want you now to go to the car backwards, okay? So now the person is going to come back after 2 or 3 hours because it is less efficient, obviously, to walk backwards. And this is how you can look at this back and front rising. It's more efficient to do things if you're moving forward, right? It's not as efficient if you're moving backwards. Usually, if you want to start something new, if you have to cast a muhurta, then you want to do it during a front rising Rashi on the ascendant, because you can do a more efficient, you can be more efficient, okay? Let's say if you want to build a house, okay? And of course you want to build a house efficiently. So, you want to make sure that there's a front rising lagna, okay? When you start building the house. Now there's the saying, 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, or 1 step forward and 2 steps backwards. There's this idea that we have to go backwards in life. And the back rising Rashis, they go backwards. The front rising Rashis go forward. It is the back rising Rashis that need to go back in order to go forward. And that's why it is important that you don't look at these back rising Rashis as something negative. For example, in astrology, so many things have to still be learned, and so many things have to be, we have to go back, to the ancient source books and learn more, because maybe so many things have been ignored in the past. And so now we have to, whether it's Vedic or Western astrology, right? There's so many things in those old books, and if we want to make progress, then we have to go back and study them properly, so that then we can move forward. So the idea is that sometimes we just have to go back first in order to move forward. And when people have strong planets and back rising Rashis, then they go back to something and bring that into their life, right? So yeah, so these back rising Rashis, they are sometimes just necessary to do, right? Because only then can we actually move forward better, right? So those back rising Rashis, they're good for going back and taking the good things. to use them now and in the future. And front-rising Rasis, they are good for just making very quick forward movement, right? And so people with strong front-rising Rasis, when they get something, they can just move forward with it, right? With healthy planets, in back-rising Rasis, before we can move forward with whatever it is that we do, we have to move back, work some things out, and then we can move forward, right? That's definitely not, as efficient, and there will be some, delay. Back-rising Rasis, they cause delay. But front-rising Rasis, they make things happen just a lot faster, right? And if you got, good planets in those front-rising Rasis, then, there's not much that, that holds you back from just, doing whatever it is that you do, okay? And you can just move forward with it, especially, of course, if you have good planets in those front-rising Rasis, right? And you can be very efficient, and you can make very quick progress with something. But if you got, let's say, good planets in back-rising Rasis, then there's a process that first you have to go back, you have to learn something, make it better before you can move forward. Now, what happens when a person got troublesome planets in back-rising Rasis? Well, then they need to keep going back to fix something before they can move forward. But somehow or another, they are just not able to get it right, and so then they just can't move forward, right? They get forced to go back again and again, but they just can't figure it out, how to make it better, how to improve it, and, they basically just don't get anywhere, right? And so it is really hard to advance in the face of troublesome planets in these back-rising Rasis, right? A person has to just again and again sort of deal with all these old issues and work on them, but somehow or another they just can't overcome those issues, right? And then they just get stuck there. Unhealthy planets in front-rising Rasis give us the ability, or unhealthy planets in front-rising Rasis, they have no ability, okay, to move forward. Right? If a person has unhealthy planets in front-rising Rasis, they are gonna feel blocked from moving forward, okay? The person is not gonna get pushed back, but somehow or another, the person is just stuck to where they can't move forward, right? Either way, we do not want afflicted planets. That's sort of the basic rule of astrology. If we have healthy planets in front-rising Rasis, then we can move forward and get ahead in life. If you have healthy planets in those back-rising Rasis, then we first have to move backwards before we can move forward, right? We have to go back, and sometimes it might even seem like, hey, this is all that there is. And it might seem like a huge progress, but then when we actually move forward, then we see, hey, it was actually just meant for us, to remove some blockages there, some problems that have always been there, sort of, so that then we can make the real progress, which comes when we actually move again forward. I can give you an example from my own chart so that you can better understand these front and back rising Rasis. So I have Ketu in the 12th house in Capricorn in a back rising sign. And Ketu always has a huge influence in our life. Ketu is really sort of what makes us feel secure, and usually we have a big talent there, okay? And Ketu in the 12th house, this shows, my inclination towards finding inner peace and creating, soul, body, mind harmony. But because it's in a back rising sign, I started off with a certain philosophy and practices that didn't work out as expected. Yes, I got some very good results, but then over some time, over several, after several years, I felt like I got stuck and I wasn't satisfied how much I progressed. And so I had to again go back and see, what I was doing wrong. And I had to make huge adjustments, to my, inner development practices before I could really move forward again. And yeah, Capricorn is also a night strong Rashi, right? So this also, this also means that, I actually, prefer doing my, inner development practices when it is, dark in the early morning hours, okay? Now, on the other hand, my Lagna Lord Saturn is in the 8th house, largely responsible for making me an astrologer, and it's also in Libra, which is a front rising Rashi. And so my approach to astrology, though, is actually completely different, right? I just study something, I contemplate it, I test it, and make up my mind, what is right, what is the best. And then I just take that technique and I just know that it's going to serve me really well, right? So my approach to astrology is that of front rising Rashi, which is that of moving forward, right? And by the way, Libra is also a day rising Rashi, or day strong Rashi. And so all of my astrology work and my studies, I actually like to do them during the day, right? I don't like to do astrology during nighttime. So if you see an astrologer who has got their important astrologer planets in front, rising Rashis, then whatever school of astrology that they study, they just take it, move forward, they're happy with it, and it will work for them really well. And then they don't have to worry about it anymore, right? It's just something that's really going to work for them quite well. If they have the important astrology indicators in back rising Rashis, then, they are going to study something, study astrology, they might practice it for a while, but after some time they realize, hey, wait a minute, there's something I need to go back again to. Something isn't working properly here, and I have to adjust things, improve things, and do things differently. And these back rising Rashis, they need sort of that experience to rise above some issue or to get sort of this broader perspective on something. And when they get that broader perspective, then yeah, they can just jump into the future, with more certainty, they are more accomplished, and and that is actually much better for them if they hadn't gotten sort of this bigger understanding. And yeah, so this is how you can see in your chart or the people that you know how these front and back rising signs work out in life. And now Pisces is rising both ways. Pisces doesn't particularly move forward things quicker, but it is also, it doesn't actually get knocked back more either. So Pisces is neutral, okay? It has the capacity to move back when it needs to and do the things that it needs to so that it can make better progress forward. But it also has the capacity to just see the good thing and move forward with it. So with Pisces, it can really happen either way. So consider it neutral, but capable of going a little bit either way. Pisces is not going to move forward as quickly as the front rising signs, but it's also not going to move backwards the way a back rising sign does. So consider it neutral for those types of things.